hush fell over the room as Luciano Torres, CEO of Neurocore Systems, walked into the Santa Clara Superior Court. He exuded an air of quiet arrogance, his tailored Armani suit and slate gray whispering tales of his wealth and power. Behind him trailed Elena Torres, his soon-to-be ex-wife, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Their divorce was the talk of the town, a messy split between one of Silicon Valley's most successful couples. But there was more to the story than met the eye. As Luciano took his seat, eyes turned to him, curious to see how he would handle this public spectacle. He sat down next to his lawyer, a slick operator named Robert Caldwell, whose sharp suits and sharper tongue were legendary in the courtroom. Across from them sat Elena with her own counsel, a soft-spoken woman named Martha Kent, whose reputation for tenacity was only matched by her compassion. But Luciano had an ace up his sleeve, a secret weapon that had the potential to turn the entire divorce proceedings on its head. He casually put his arm round the shoulder of a young woman sitting behind him, a woman who was the reason why the proceedings were about to take a dramatic turn. Her name was Sofia Vega, his mistress, and she was the embodiment of everything Elena was not. Younger, more ambitious, and with a striking beauty that could make heads turn. Sofia was the kind of woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. Her presence at the trial was a clear message to Elena, a reminder of what Luciano had and what Elena stood to lose. The trial began with the expected. Elena, through her lawyer, painted a picture of a marriage gone sour, setting irreconcilable differences and years of emotional neglect on Luciano's part. The judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense attitude, listened patiently, her gaze fixed on Luciano, waiting for his response. Robert Caldwell, Luciano's lawyer, was a master of his craft. He knew exactly when to strike and when to hold back, always keeping a close eye on his client. When it was time for Luciano to speak, he did so with a calm confidence that belied the turmoil raging within him. He admitted to the affair, but downplayed its significance, emphasizing that it had begun after his separation from Eleanor. But Eleanor wasn't having it. Through her lawyer, she accused Luciano of using the Mistress defense to paint himself as the victim, when in reality, their marriage had been over for months. The judge, however, remained unmoved. She had seen enough of these high-profile divorces to spot a power play a mile away, and it seemed to her that both parties were guilty of using the court as a battleground for their personal vendetta. As the day wore on, the atmosphere in the courtroom grew increasingly tense. Each accusation was met with a flurry of legal jargon and raised voices. It was a classic high-stakes game of legal chess, with each move carefully calculated to gain the upper hand. Then came the unexpected. As Elena's lawyer was wrapping up her argument, she made a stunning announcement. She informed the judge that they had a surprise witness, a witness who could provide irrefutable proof of Luciano's infidelity. All eyes turned to the door as a figure began to walk towards the witness stand. It was Sofia, Luciano's mistress. A gasp echoed through the courtroom. No one had anticipated this turn of events. What was Sofia doing here? Had Luciano sent her to testify on his behalf, or was she there to expose him? The suspense was palpable as Sofia took her place on the stand. Her hands trembled slightly, betraying her nervousness. Under the harsh glare of the courtroom lights, her face lost some of its usual radiance. The judge, sensing her unease, leaned forward to address her. "Miss Vega," she said, her voice echoing in the hushed courtroom, "are you here voluntarily?" Sofia's eyes darted around the room before settling on the judge. She began, her voice shaking. "I was asked to come." Her eyes dropped to her lap, unable to meet the judge's gaze. "Asked to come by whom?" The judge pressed, her voice leaving no room for evasion. Sofia hesitated, torn between her love for Luciano and the mounting pressure. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Torres," she whispered, her voice barely audible. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Elena's lawyer, sensing victory, pounced. So you were called here by Mr. Torres, is that correct? Sofia nodded, tears streaming down her face. He told me to tell the truth, whatever the truth may be, she said, her voice breaking. At that moment, Elena's lawyer had a stack of emails on her phone. They contained messages from Luciano to Sofia, messages that detailed their affair, messages that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Luciano had been unfaithful. With trembling hands, she began to read them aloud in the hushed silence of the courtroom. Each word cut like a knife, each message a fresh wound to Elena's already battered heart. Meanwhile, Luciano sat stone-faced, his gaze fixed on the table in front of him. He had known this might happen, but he hadn't thought it would be this devastating. He had hoped Sofia's love for him would protect him, but she was clearly afraid, and now she was spilling the beans. In his desperation, Luciano turned to his lawyer, Robert Caldwell, hoping for a counter move, something, anything to shift the narrative back in their favor. But even Caldwell looked grim, his usual swagger replaced by a furrowed brow and pursed lips. This was not the outcome he had anticipated. Elena's lawyer, sensing her advantage, pressed further, each question aimed at extracting a confession from Sofia, a confession that would seal Luciano's fate in this courtroom drama. The weight of the evidence against him became too much to bear. Luciano's carefully constructed facade began to crumble, revealing the tormented man underneath. In a sudden, impulsive move, he stood up, startling everyone in the courtroom. His face ashen, he approached the witness stand, ignoring the shocked gasps of those around him. Sofia, he began, his voice hoarse with emotion, his eyes pleading for understanding. Please stop. I can't bear this anymore. But Sofia, overwhelmed by the situation, burst into tears, unable to respond. Her loyalty to Luciano warred with her fear of the consequences. It was a heartbreaking display of raw emotions laid bare in the public arena. Amidst the chaos, Judge Thompson banged her gavel, demanding order in her courtroom. The room fell silent, eyes on Luciano. The judge, known for her no-nonsense attitude, stared at him expectantly. With a defeated sigh, Luciano sank back into his chair, realizing he had lost control of the situation. His efforts to salvage his reputation had only made things worse. He understood now that he couldn't force Sofia to lie for him, nor could he bully her into submission. Their affair was out in the open, and there was no hiding from the truth. As the trial dragged on, it became clear to everyone present that the once formidable Mr. Torres was a mere mortal after all, capable of making terrible mistakes and enduring the pain of a broken heart. The courtroom, which had initially been filled with anticipation of a fierce legal battle, had transformed into a space for empathy. Even Elena, who had been the victim of Luciano's infidelity, found herself momentarily sympathizing with him. Seeing the depth of his despair, she realized that no one, regardless of their status or wealth, was immune to the complexities of love and relationships. The conclusion of the trial was anticlimactic. Luciano, stripped of his arrogance, agreed to a divorce and a hefty alimony payment. He had lost not just his wife, but also his reputation as the untouchable king of Silicon Valley. Sofia, torn between her love for Luciano and her own ambitions, chose to distance herself from him, disappearing from the public eye. In the end, it was Elena who emerged as the victor, taking with her a large sum of money and a renewed sense of self-respect. As for Luciano, he retreated into the shadows, his empire crumbling around him. He had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the mightiest can fall. The next day, Elena called a meeting. She wanted witnesses. Two women sat across from her in the mahogany-paneled office, both armed with sharp intellects and sharper elbows. Elena went straight to the point. I need full-scale divorce litigation. I want half of everything, The older woman, Lauren Pierce, raised an eyebrow. "We're talking about Luciano Torres, dear. You know he won't grant you half of anything. He'll offer you the usual sweetheart deal, a token gesture of generosity, and a lot of public relations spin. Then I want half of that," Elena replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "This is your fight," Lauren said, leaning back. "Not mine. You're up against the most ruthless shark in the taxi. He'll tear you limb from limb and not feel remorse. He started it," Eleanor said quietly. "And I can end it." That afternoon, the tabloids went into overdrive. The headline, "Mogul's Model Mistress Leaks Secrets, Dumps Wife for Younger Muse." Elena ignored them. She was laying her own groundwork. She contacted the best PR firm in New York, run by a woman named Jackie Roberts, whose clients included politicians and CEOs. She also hired a private investigator to dig up every secret, every sin, every hidden truth in Luciano's past. Eleanor moved into the Upper East Side townhouse, vacant most of the years since Luciano bought it as a pied-à-terre. Inside, it was a mausoleum of memories. Portraits of her and Luciano stared down at her from the walls. Their wedding gifts. There were even framed pictures of Mir and Luker as infants. She felt a pang of regret, quickly dismissed it as weakness. She was playing the long game. She had to, because her husband had already made his move. First, there were the leaked photos. Paparazzi shots of him and the so-called mistress, Sofia, on romantic vacations, holding hands, laughing. Then came the whispers in the press about a new startup funded by Torres Enterprises, one that specialized in facial recognition technology. The ringleader, a young, ambitious programmer named Ari Gold, was conveniently the ex-husband of Sofia Santos. All signs pointed to a carefully orchestrated plan. First, damage Elena's reputation and torpedo her credibility. Next, cripple her financially. Finally, discredit her completely. But Elena had anticipated the financial hit. While working for Luciano, she'd studied the company's financials and set up blind trusts for herself and Mia. The money wasn't hers to take. It was theirs. As for the smears in the media, she had the perfect comeback. Elena released a statement through her PR firm. It was short, factual, and above all, dignified. No recriminations, no apologies, not even a hint of bitterness, just the stark truth. "After 16 years of marriage, my husband and I have decided to separate. While we have made every effort to keep our personal lives private, the recent media circus has made that impossible. I will not be commenting further and ask for privacy during this difficult time." The response was immediate and explosive. Women all over the world praised her for handling the situation with grace, even some of the major news networks ran opinion pieces calling for the return of traditional feminine values for Eleanor. It was all part of the plan. She played the role of the wronged wife perfectly, flawlessly orchestrating her own counter-narrative. In fact, her statement was just the opening move. Her PR team went on the offensive, reminding the world of her many accomplishments, her charity work, her role in promoting modern art. They organized museum retrospectives of Elena's former work as a curator. Journalists who had written scathing pieces about her now wrote admiring ones. A famous fashion house that had dropped her as a brand ambassador invited her back to walk in their Paris show. Once again, Elena showed nothing but icy calm. Underneath the surface, though, the glacial depths churned. She knew exactly who was behind the campaign to destroy her, and she wouldn't rest until she made them pay. In the meantime, court proceedings moved forward slowly. Elena refused to sign any documents put in front of her. She would meet with her lawyers, her PR team, her daughter's tutors, but when it came to settling terms, she stayed silent. Luciano grew impatient. He tried sweetening the pot, offering her a larger share of his fortune, promising sole custody of Mir if she agreed to step down. But Elena kept refusing everything. Weeks bled into months, the public spectacle growing tiresome. People started to ask if Elena might actually be the bad guy, the controlling, manipulative wife who had held her husband captive for 15 years. But Elena had a response ready for that. She began publishing stories, donating large sums to domestic violence charities, and attending fundraising galas for women's rights organizations. Every appearance cemented her image as a champion of female empowerment. Meanwhile, her team was digging deeper. They found out about Sofia's murky past, including a string of failed businesses and lawsuits alleging deceptive business practices. As for Ari Gold, well, he was just a pawn. He had created Neuralink, but Torres owned 90% of it through a complex web of shell companies. Elena's team found evidence of tax evasion and insider trading, weapons-grade dirt that could bring down not just a company, but an empire. Elena laid it all out on the table. If this story breaks, Torres goes down, she told her lawyer. He becomes the poster boy for Silicon Valley corruption. So why hasn't he just paid me what I want? Her lawyer sighed. Because he thinks he can get away with less. He's toying with you, Elena. Taking you for granted. That's where I think he's wrong, she replied, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. One night, Elena went out with her daughter. Mia had been struggling with the divorce, spending long periods of time staring at the floor or out the window, lost in thought. Seeing her sad, Elena had taken her out for frozen yogurt and shopping, the way they used to do when life was simpler. As they walked into the restaurant, Mia stopped dead in her tracks. Mommy, is that him? She whispered, pointing to a nearby table. At that table sat Ari Gold, with a group of investors. He was explaining something on his phone, his voice tight with anxiety. He looked harassed, defeated. Elena smiled. Yes, honey, that's him. She squeezed her daughter's hand. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. Later, walking home, Mir asked, what happens to him? He'll be okay, Elena said. But he won't hurt us anymore. I promise. As they stepped into their opulent apartment, Elena turned to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Below her, the city was alive with possibility. Her friends warned her she was playing a dangerous game, but Elena knew she was winning. She had turned the tables and rewritten the narrative. Now it was Luciano who was trapped. He had awakened the sleeping giant, and she wouldn't rest until she saw his empire crumble. Part 2 of the series Golden Handcuffs. Elena stood before Judge McCready, an imposing woman whose gaze seemed to pierce through all pretense. Beside Eleanor stood her attorney, Daniel Cho. Her calm demeanor belied the storm of emotions raging within. As Eleanor stepped forward, her voice rang out, echoing in the cavernous courtroom. Your Honor, I am here today because my husband has betrayed me. He no longer loves me, nor does he care for our children or our marriage. In fact, he has boldly stated his intention to destroy me. He seeks to take away everything I hold dear, including our beautiful children. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. Despite this, I have held fast to my love for my husband and my commitment to our marriage. I have tried tirelessly to repair the cracks in our relationship, but he has shown no interest in reconciliation. My only hope now is to shield my children from the pain and manipulation their father inflicts upon them. He has openly threatened to use our children as pawns in his twisted game against me, showing no regard for their emotional well-being. My pleas for him to stop have fallen on deaf ears. He remains determined to hurt me, driven by his own selfish desires. Elena's eyes flashed with unused tears. In light of this, I am compelled to seek a divorce. I must protect myself and my children from his relentless pursuit of revenge. Silence fell over the courtroom as she finished, leaving everyone to ponder the weight of her words. Across from her sat Luciano Torres, flanked by his attorneys, his expression unreadable. Next to him sat his new partner, Sofia Reyes, her eyes fixed on Elena, radiating disdain. The judge cleared her throat, breaking the silence. Murchow, Miss Torres claims her husband has threatened her and their children. Can you elaborate? Daniel Cho rose, his demeanor confident. Judge, my client alleges that Mr. Torres has threatened her emotionally, not physically. He has made statements indicating his desire to use our clients as pawns in a vindictive game, suggesting that he might take the children away from her. While these aren't physical threats, they constitute emotional duress, significantly impacting my client's mental health and that of her children. The judge nodded, her gaze fixed on Eleanor. Mrs. Torres, do you have any evidence to support your claim? Elena took a deep breath, reaching for the USB drive in her purse. I do, Your Honor. This drive contains emails and text messages proving that Mr. Torres intends to use our children to punish me. The judge signaled for the drive to be plugged into the provided device, the screen displaying the damning evidence. This is Project Falcon, Elena said, pointing to a document on the screen. It was sent to me by my husband's assistant. It outlines Mr. Torres' plan to keep our children close to him, to manipulate them against me and ultimately to use them as leverage against me. I fear for my children's well-being as this plan will undoubtedly cause them emotional distress. The judge nodded, allowing Elena to continue. Here, Eleanor said, pulling up another email, is the most recent communication. It was sent just yesterday. My husband continues to threaten me, showing no remorse for the pain he is inflicting on our children and me. Elena looked up, meeting the judge's gaze. Your Honor, his behavior is reprehensible. I urge you to grant me primary custody, ensuring the safety and emotional well-being of our children. As the hearing continued, Daniel presented additional evidence of Luciano's questionable activities, focusing on his involvement in high-risk ventures and the potential dangers it posed to Elena and each children. With each piece of evidence, the picture of Luciano as a reckless and potentially harmful figure grew clearer. Meanwhile, Elena described the loving and stable environment she had created for their children, emphasizing her commitment to their upbringing. She spoke of the deep bond she shared with them, highlighting her ability to provide a nurturing and supportive home. As the hearing drew to a close, the judge delivered her verdict. Considering the evidence and testimonies, she granted Elena sole custody of their children, emphasizing the importance of their emotional well-being. Additionally, she ordered a comprehensive investigation into allegations of Luciano's threatening behavior and ordered counseling for him, citing his pattern of risky behavior and its potential impact on his parenting abilities. Although the judge did not rule on the divorce itself, she paved the way for Elena to move forward with her life, free from the toxic influence of her former husband. Back in the studio apartment, Elena allowed herself a rare moment of relaxation. She sank into the couch, letting out a long sigh of relief. The weight of the battle had been immense, but the victory, oh, it tasted so sweet. Round her, signs of life returned. Birds chirped outside, the gentle hum of the city filled the air, and sunlight streamed through the windows. For the first time in a long time, Elena felt a sense of lightness. The judgment was a testament to her strength and resilience, a beacon of hope in the midst of her tumultuous journey. Yet she knew the fight was far from over. Luciano, cornered and enraged, would surely retaliate. His ego bruised, his control shattered. He'd lash out in ways she couldn't yet predict. The knowledge of the upcoming challenges only fueled Elena's determination. She was ready to face whatever came next. The road ahead might be fraught with obstacles, but Elena stood tall, her spirit unbroken. With the support of those who believed in her and armed with the truth, she was prepared to navigate the treacherous waters that lay ahead. Meanwhile, in a lavish penthouse high above the city, Luciano sat fuming. His world had been dealt a blow from which he might never recover. As he absorbed the implications of the ruling, a dangerous glint appeared in his eye. Cornered and desperate, he began devising a new strategy, one that would exploit every dirty trick in his arsenal. In the following weeks, Elena's life became a war zone. Luciano, consumed by hatred and a lust for revenge, unleashed a series of calculated attacks aimed at destroying her. His tactics were insidious, preying on her vulnerabilities and targeting those closest to her. He spread vicious rumors, launched smear campaigns, and manipulated the media, all in an effort to tarnish Elena's reputation and isolate her. Friendships were tested, alliances shifted, and Elena found herself battling not only for her own well-being, but also to protect her children's innocence. However, amidst the chaos, Elena remained steadfast. She drew strength from her children's unwavering love and the support of her newfound allies. Together, they formed a tight-knit circle, shielding each other from the onslaught of negativity and finding solace in their shared experiences. One evening, as Elena tucked her children into bed, she noticed a change in their demeanor. They seemed withdrawn, their laughter replaced by a haunting silence. When she inquired about their day at school, their responses were unusually brief, hinting at a troubling undercurrent. Their innocence had been tainted by the whispers and scrutiny that followed them. Heartbroken by her children's pain, Elena vowed to shield them from further harm. With renewed vigor, she documented every instance of Luciano's abuse and reached out to influential figures in her community, rallying support for her cause. As she navigated the labyrinth of legal and social complexities, Elena discovered a strength within her she never knew existed. She became a force to be reckoned with, determined to hold onto her children and protect their futures. With each passing day, her resolve grew stronger, fueled by an unwavering love for her children and a refusal to be broken by adversity. But little did Elena know that Luciano, fueled by hatred and desperation, had a final, devastating trick up his sleeve. A move so audacious and cruel it threatened to shatter the fragile peace she had managed to carve out for herself and her children. As the final showdown loomed on the horizon, Eleanor braced herself for the ultimate battle. She knew that to secure a future for herself and her children, she must confront her demons and emerge victorious. And so the stage was set for the final act of this heart-wrenching drama. With every decision hanging in the balance, Elena stood poised, ready to fight for her children's future and her own freedom from the clutches of her golden handcuffs. The house was wrapped in fog the morning of the hearing. As though the city itself was holding its breath, Eleanor chose her armor carefully, the same simple navy dress, her hair in that modest twist. It was her uniform of quiet resolve. She wasn't here to dazzle. She was here to endure. The gallery, however, was buzzing. Reporters lined the benches, their pens poised for scandal. Gossip bloggers lurked like vultures, ready to feast on whatever carcass of humiliation the day would produce. Then came Luciano. He entered courtroom 7B as if he were stepping onto a red carpet. His smile, broad and confident, was the kind of grin that usually accompanied IPO announcements and magazine covers. Sofia clung to his arm, today in a cream-colored dress that looked one seam away from a wardrobe malfunction. They were a portrait of victory, already rehearsing their headlines. Eleanor didn't look at them. She fixed her gaze on the elevated bench where Judge Margaret Alden sat, a woman in her 60s with eyes sharp enough to cut steel. "All rise," the bailiff called, and the trial began. Marcus Delaney, Luciano's shark of a lawyer, stood first, his voice dripped with theatrical gravity. "Your Honor, my client does not bring this request lightly. But for the sake of clarity, and for the children's future, we must resolve the question of paternity." Gasps fluttered through the gallery. Luciano leaned forward slightly, as though preparing to savor Elena's public ruin. Sofia squeezed his hand beneath the table. Judge Alden's gaze flicked to Daniel Cho. "Mr. Cho, your response?" Daniel stood, calm as a surgeon. "Your Honor, this accusation is baseless, malicious, and deeply damaging. It is character assassination, pure and simple." But he paused, letting the words settle. To protect the children from further uncertainty, my client will consent to the court-ordered test. Let's have the truth once and for all. Luciano's smile widened. In his mind, the nail had just been driven into Elena's coffin. Judge Alden nodded. Very well. The court has received the official DNA analysis from the certified lab. The results will be unsealed and read today. The room held its collective breath. The judge lifted a large sealed manila envelope, its crimson wax seal unbroken. She slid a letter opener through the flap. The faint crack of wax echoed like a gunshot. She scanned the report silently. For a brief moment, her face betrayed something surprise, disgust, before her mask returned. Then she looked up, directly at Luciano. Mr. Torres, she said, her voice cold as marble. According to the DNA analysis, the probability of you being the father of Leo Torres is 99.998%. The room gasped. Luciano's smile faltered, then collapsed entirely. Color drained from his face. He looked at Marcus, who blinked as if struck. The judge continued, her voice ringing with finality. And the probability of you being the father of Mia Torres is 99.999%. Let the record show, by your own motion, that paternity has been established beyond all doubt. Silence fell. Sofia's hand slipped from Luciano's arm as if she'd touched fire. She stared at him, wide-eyed, her painted lips slightly parted. Elena sat perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Before Marcus could recover, Daniel Cho rose smoothly to his feet. Your Honor, given that my client's reputation has been viciously attacked on a claim now proven false, we have several matters to present. Marcus sputtered. Objection. This isn't on the docket. Overruled. Judge Alden snapped. Her eyes narrowing. You opened this door. Counselor, I will hear Mr. Cho. Daniel walked to the clerk and handed over a thick binder. This forensic accounting report details a network of offshore shell corporations names like Falcon Holdings and Blue Heron Investments used by Mr. Torres to conceal over $150 million in marital assets. Transfers were made in the 6 months leading up to this filing. In short, Your Honor, this is fraud. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Marcus spluttered, trying to speak, but the judge cut him off. I will permit the presentation of evidence under these circumstances. These are not routine proceedings. The court is here to ensure the rights and welfare of 2 children are protected. Turning to Elena, she said, Mrs. Elena, you may proceed. Elena took a deep breath, meeting the judge's gaze. Thank you, Your Honor. There are 3 things I'd like to put on the record. First, my husband's confession to his mistress. Second, his attempt to bribe me into dropping the divorce proceedings. Third, the financial records, which prove his claim about my affair is a lie. The judge signaled her agreement. A bailiff approached Elena and handed her a small exhibit, a tablet showing an encrypted chat. She pressed play. Luciano's voice filled the room, his words a web of lies and threats. I know what you're after, Lena. My money. You think you can squeeze me for half? Over my dead body. The lawyer will tell them you slept around. That'll show 'em. Elena's chin lifted. Her voice, though soft, carried. He admitted his infidelity. Now let's expose his hypocrisy. Eleanor turned to the second exhibit, her voice hardening. As a loving wife, I tried to repair my marriage, but my efforts were met with mockery and scorn. Your lies destroyed my trust. Your betrayal eroded my hope. Now I find myself abandoned and alone, slandered and ridiculed. You seek to tarnish my reputation while shielding your own. The screen changed, revealing a sequence of wire transfers, complex financial transactions hidden in plain sight. Elena's voice echoed with quiet power. These are the same offshore accounts used by my husband to support his lover. She's not some naive ingenue as he claimed. She's complicit in our marriage breakdown, actively participating in the dissipation of marital funds. Silence descended on the courtroom. Elena's voice rang out, clear and strong. My marriage may be over, but my integrity remains intact. I may be alone, but I am not broken. I am not the one who cheated. I am not the one who lied. I am not the one who threatened. I am not the one who hid money. I am not the one who destroyed this marriage. I am not the one who abandoned his child. I am not the one who left me and my children penniless. I am not the one who ruined my life. Tears welled in her eyes, playing the image of the man on the screen. I may be alone, but I am not broken. I may be alone, but I am not broken. Judge Alden banged her gavel sharply. Order, order in the court. Everyone jumped at the sound. Mrs. Elena, your testimony is noted. You may step down. She signaled for a recess. We will reconvene in 30 minutes. As the crowd dispersed, murmuring in hushed tones, Daniel Cho stayed behind. Elena, he said softly, you did well. Thank you, Daniel. She paused. Do you think I should send the recording to the press? Daniel shook his head. No, we won in there. That's what matters. Elena nodded slowly, feeling a profound sadness envelop her. She knew what she had to do next. Gather her scattered pieces and build a new life for herself and her children. She was alone, but not broken. This was the moment Elena had been preparing for, anticipating since the day her husband's infidelity became undeniable. As the judge read the decree, her voice steady and resonant, Elena's grip tightened around the armrests of her chair. Each sentence was a blow struck for her children. Man and wife, man and wife. The judge intoned, each syllable carrying the weight of finality. You are hereby declared to be legally separated. She could feel a triumphant smile tugging at her lips, but she resisted, allowing no visible sign of elation to betray her. Her face was impassive. Composed, and you, counsel, the judge continued, his gaze momentarily flickering towards Marcus Delaney, who sat rigid in his chair. You are dangerously close to being implicated yourself. I suggest you retain an attorney. Finally, her gaze softened as she looked at Elena, offering the faintest nod of respect. Elena returned it, silent, calm, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She hadn't said a word all morning. She didn't need to. Beside her, Daniel Cho offered a barely perceptible smile, understanding the silent communication between them. It was over. Justice, cold and implacable, had been served. Across the table, Luciano Torres, the king of Silicon Valley, sat slumped in his chair, his face a mask of horror. His empire was crumbling, his mistress collapsing beside him, his name already a headline for all the wrong reasons. And the worst part, he had done it all to himself. Watching him implode had been the sweetest revenge of all. Hours later, the bombshell dropped. News of the divorce and the scandal broke in a cacophony of digital thunderclaps. First, the legal filing itself, leaked to the press, detailed every facet of Luciano's deceit, every lie, every betrayal. Then came Sofia's outburst in the courtroom, captured by hidden microphones and now played on a continuous loop by media outlets. You promised me everything, she wailed, her voice cracking. You lied to me. You betrayed me. I trusted you. The echo of her anguish resonated across the internet, instantly becoming meme fodder. Within minutes, remixes of her tearful tirade appeared on social media platforms, lip-synced by countless users, their mockery palpable. It was as if the entire online world rose in unison to deride the mistress. There was no sympathy for her, only scorn and amusement. For Elena, it was a spectacle to behold, yet she refused to indulge. She knew that the true satisfaction lay not in schadenfreude, but in the quiet certainty of her own strength. As the storm outside reached a crescendo, she sat in her attorney's office, sipping water as she reviewed the terms of the agreement. Every provision, every clause had been meticulously crafted by Daniel Cho. The divorce decree itself was a thing of beauty, both devastating and precise in its language. Her eyes fell upon the child custody section, specifically the clauses addressing visitation for the children's sake. It is ordered that Mr. Torres must undergo a psychological evaluation, the decree stated, to be conducted by a psychologist approved by both parties, the cost of which shall be borne equally by both parties. Another clause stipulated that any supervised visitation would take place at a neutral third-party location. And perhaps most importantly, the decree stated clearly and unequivocally, the minor children shall have primary residence with their mother, Mrs. Elena Torres. The words seemed to glow on the page, each letter imbued with the weight of hard-earned justice. Meanwhile, the winds of change were sweeping through Neurocourse Systems, Luciano's brainchild, his pride. Within hours of the divorce filing, news of the paternity suit, and the damning tapes hit the fan. A special board meeting was called, an emergency conclave of Neurocourse top executives. Cameras and microphones were banned. No press release went out, yet word leaked in fragments, furtive whispers that sent shock waves through the tech world. Within hours, the hashtag #Neurocore imploded was trending. Top executives left the building with grim expressions, declining to comment. None of the board members emerged to reassure investors, to quell the panic spreading like wildfire among Neurocore employees. By late afternoon, the rumors were confirmed. A single concise statement was posted on Neurocore's official channels. In light of recent events, it began, there was no other option. They had no choice. The board had voted unanimously to terminate his contract as CEO. The news reverberated through the tech world like an earthquake. From San Francisco to Seattle, from Austin to New York, the ripples were felt by thousands. Investors nervously clutched their portfolios. Employees clutched their phones close, fear lending urgency to their thumbs as they refreshed their feeds, desperate for answers. On Wall Street, Neurocore's stock plummeted. Analysts issued sell alerts. Rumors swirled about the board culling in corporate readers. Neurocore, once a shining star in the firmament of tech, was suddenly seen through a kaleidoscope of suspicion and doubt. Its future, once so promising, now teetered on the edge of oblivion. Back at the courthouse, Elena and Daniel stood side by side, observing the scene before them. Cameras flashed as Luciano Torres, his face ashen, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his unraveling empire, was led out of the courthouse by burly security guards. His lawyer at his side, both men ashen-faced. The crowd pressed forward, seeking a closer look, a glimpse of the fallen titan. Questions echoed through the air, though none could be answered. Why had it come to this? How could it have all fallen apart so completely? Was there any hope of recovery? Yet as Eleanor watched, she saw not a tragic hero, but a common sight, the back of an entitled man running from the consequences of his actions. Her gaze shifted to the scrum of reporters, their questions hanging heavy in the air. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her arm, sensing her inner turmoil. Eleanor drew a shaky breath, the metallic tang of tears rising in her throat. She knew better than to indulge in such weakness. Wiping the moisture from her eyes, she turned to Daniel, gratitude evident in her voice. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You were right," she admitted, her gaze fixed on the retreating figures of her estranged husband and his mistress. "I should have listened to you from the start." Daniel Cho returned her gaze, his expression grave. "This isn't the time for regrets, Elena," he said gently. "What matters is that we secured the best outcome for you and the children." His words, kind and firm, steadied her. She knew he was right. The past couldn't be rewritten. But the future, well, the future was hers to shape. As evening descended on Silicon Valley, casting long shadows across the glass towers of ambition, Elena found herself alone in the hushed confines of her attorney's office. The day's events, the divorce, the exposure, the utter humiliation of Luciano, it all threatened to overwhelm her. Suddenly, her composure crumbled. Tears welled up, blurring her vision. In that moment of utter vulnerability, the weight of months of repressed emotions threatened to crush her. Yet even then, even as tears streamed down her face, a sense of triumph surged through her. The nightmare was over. She was free.